Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity in Technology webinar series. I am Noya, and during this webinar, if you have any question, please leave it in Q&A box, and we will discuss your questions after our speaker's presentation. And this is our second talk, and we will have two UCL PhD students, Tiggy and Tao here. They will be talking about their research stories of being creative. They are doing research in UCLIC, a center which is doing the human-computer interaction teaching and research, studying interactions between people and technology, drawing on the scientific traditions in computer science and human science. As a researcher exploring psychology of creativity, I think Tiggy and Tao are two very good representatives for our PhD students, since they can see the creative aspects, not only in their research outcomes, but also in their thinking process. So I have talked to them, and I think their self-reflections on their research process are very inspiring. And today, I believe you will also be inspired. So the first part of today's talk will be Tiggy's story, and then Tao will talk about the hinder of creativity in the current situation. And at the end, we will leave several minutes for Q&A. The talk will last in 30 minutes. Now let's welcome Tiggy.
Thanks for the introduction to the talk and for inviting me to speak. So hello everybody who have tuned in right now. Thanks for joining in, and also thank you guys who will be seeing this recording at a later stage. So I can start off on sharing my experiences on how I've sort of explored the idea of creativity in some of my work so far. And I'll be talking about the top 3 requirements that I think are necessary to engineer creatively. So before I start off on that, quick introduction about me. My name is Tigmanshu Bhatnagar, and as you heard, you can also call me Tiggy. I am basically a designer who's now pretending to be an engineer. So by that I mean that I have a background in design and product design specifically, and currently I'm working on various different engineering problems, or I've been working on solving certain engineering challenges in my work, but always having a designer's perspective to them. So in my experiences so far, the top 3 requirements that I feel are necessary in order to creatively engineer things is this. The first is confidence. So I realized that creativity is often doing something new and something unusual that people have not seen before. And in terms of engineering, we are always keen on making something that actually works. I mean, that's the requirement that is by default. So it requires a lot of confidence to make something new, and that's something that can actually also work. And one of the best ways to inculcate this confidence in the solutions and in ourselves, I have realized, is by prototypes. So making a lot of different things that can actually help us understand the problem better, but also find solutions to it. Something I realized during my master's dissertation, where I was trying to design a soft lower limb exosuit using a single actuator that can be placed on the back of a person. So here you can see a prototype of the lower leg and the torso. And after an entire night of experimenting various different mechanisms, I finally found one that works and can help a person to stand up. This, of course, gave me the kind of playground that was required to understand the biomechanical equations that run this kind of a design, which was later on developed into a full-fledged prototype, and we had some very positive results from this exoskeleton. Now, the prototype gave me not just the confidence to make this, but also gave me some kind of a playground to experiment various different ideas. It was making something that is quite abstract and complicated into something that is tangible and playable, like Lego. So I think this works very well when we are trying to experiment a new solution, or trying to bake something new in a complicated area. The second requirement that I think is very important is to see problems from different perspectives. something that I've realized quite recently in my PhD work, which is to basically design a new tactile interface for blind people so that they're able to do STEM subjects. They're able to see various different graphics and scientific diagrams on a refreshable screen. So existing approaches in order to make this really requires us to engineer ways or find ways in which we can actuate small little dots up and that can go up and down in a very tight, in a very sort of compact area, so that we can have high resolution for the fingers to see. It's a very difficult challenge, and there have been many approaches to solve this. However, I started to question this question exactly that do we really need to make another version that can make it much more efficient or cheaper, or this kind of thing, or what exactly is the purpose of such a display? And that led me to the exploration of understanding the mechanics of the finger while it is actually moving on top of such surfaces, where I realized that it's not really about, the question isn't really about making just another solution of reciprocating individual dots in a highly compact array, but actually creating dynamic friction on the surface of the skin. Now, this has led to a very interesting idea where we basically use a surface and pop out pixels from that particular surface. And then we can change the pattern of this popping out in order to create different tactile images or even braille for that instance. I cannot show you more at this stage because we are seriously thinking of patenting this, but it is something very unique as we have realized so far. The third most important requirement that I have realized is to work in teams. Now, the problems today are very multidisciplinary, and it requires expertise and sort of expertise, and also an environment where that expertise can actually be put into a creative use. So always try to surround, I always try to surround myself with good people who are supportive in failing, and at the same point of time are critical about ideas as well, in a good way, in a constructive way. Now, this is something that was quite apparent in this particular project where we were trying to design a new motorcycle for a disabled person who couldn't really use his limbs, but really wanted something that is, showcases his personality and doesn't really make him feel stigmatized out on the road. It was made possible only because of my team, which consisted of design students and engineering students who were quite passionate about uh, the dynamics of a vehicle and know the details about it. Technicians who have been working in this field for a very long time and who know how to repair and make things. Uh, and also school-going children who really just knew everything about this out of YouTube. Most important person in this entire group was the disabled person himself, who really guided us as to what is it that is desirable. So the aspect of we are making something new, it must really appeal to the masses, and rest of the team really made that happen from an engineering and a design standpoint. So, so that's the third most important requirement of having yourself surrounding in a good team. Okay. A bonus requirement that I think is very interesting at this moment, not so much related to engineering experiences that I've had, but definitely to design, is serendipity. So some serendipity, how I understand, is that you're not actually trying to look for a solution, but the solution just comes to you. It's the question is still there in your mind, but you're not actively trying to solve the problem, but you're taking just a step back. This was the case for the design of this particular product, which is an immersion blender. So we were trying to explore aesthetics of this very common device, and the shape of this particular design really evolved from something like this. So the exploration wasn't really to design an immersion blender, but the exploration was just random assemblies of various different objects lying around in my room. And I stumbled across this one, which gave me the ideas could potentially be something quite interesting and unique in terms of its aesthetics. So to quickly wrap things up, how to creatively engineer? The first thing is to be confident and build a lot of prototypes, not just help us understand the problem better, but also gives us a platform to think of various different new solutions quite quickly and easily. See problems from different perspectives and start to question the question itself. Sometimes the new question on the question can lead to a new answer. It's a little bit complicated, but yeah, I think you get it. Surround yourself with good people. That always helps in being more creative, more risk-taking, and also being more, and actually getting things done. And sometimes just try and take a step back, not solve the problem aggressively, but let the solution come to you. So that's all from my end, and thank you everyone for paying attention to it. I'm open for any questions so far.
Thank you, Tiggy. I think I like your points. It's very inspiring to me still. I mean, if the audience, any of you have any question in terms of the specific points, you can leave it in the Q&A box and we can discuss it later. So maybe if you want Tiggy to give you more specific, detailed experience examples, we can talk about it later. But Tiggy, just one thing, I really want to say it now. So you just suggest the questioning the question. That part really reminds me of a very interesting argument I have read in the psychology of creativity. So when people are designing a product, you can either employ a rule-based design model. So in that model, you don't change the identity of the objects, or you can employ an innovative design model in which you have to deliberately challenge the identity of the object. So researchers found that if you deliberately challenge the identity of the objects, which is you can questioning the question, and you will rethink the product, which allows you to be more creative. And in a resource constrained condition, so for instance, for now, I feel like this is even more efficient method to increase your creative. So I think this argument is quite consistent with your argument. So that's why I just want to mention it here. Yeah.
That's actually quite true. And if researchers found that out, I mean, that also gives me a lot of confidence in this particular argument, because it's something that I realized, sometimes the problems are too classified, they are too direct, they're too almost already solved, and there are just problems within those problems that we need to address. But sometimes, taking a step back and trying to relook at the question itself and asking a very simple thing, why? And so what? These kind of things to the idea that already exists gives us, a well, at least opens this door for thinking in new perspectives. It may lead to some interesting ideas. It may lead to very bogus ideas as well if things are already solved very nicely. For example, we don't really need to ask this question to the design of an airplane. Already a lot of things happening, but if we are looking forward to design a new kind of a plane, but of course, we can ask the question, why does it work in this way? And then
yeah, I agree. You just I think it's kind of so also we always think about divergent thinking in creativity, but actually critical thinking and critically think about the question, about the problem itself may help you to be more creative, because he opens more perspectives, views for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might go back to this later. So now let's move to Tao's presentation.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. And thank you for Tiggy's very interesting talk. And my name is Tao, and I'm currently a PhD student in human-computer interaction at the UCL Interaction Centre. So my PhD and my research is about designing the technology for sports and fitness during daily life. And today I would like to talk about some my own personal experience based on doing research and innovation activities online. So Tiggy just mentioned some physical design workshops or design activities. And since this pandemic started, we have to shift everything online. So I would like to share my thoughts about what could hinder your creativity in remote collaborative design workshops. So traditionally, we have these physical workshops like the picture shows, and we have this nice space. We have people surround us, and also we have a lot of interesting material that we can use to assist our innovation process. However, since this pandemic started, all we do is just sit in front of the computer screen, and sometimes we just get frustrated. So in order to know how the creativity is affected, so let's unpack the experience of doing these collaborative remote workshops. I would like to discuss them with you from these four perspectives: the physical, the social, the emotion, and the cognitive aspect. For the physical aspect, it's clearly that in the physical workshop, we have the freedom of movement thanks to the space. But like what we are doing now in front of the computer, we may just keep a frozen posture or maybe an uncomfortable posture, like what I'm doing now. Probably you're doing the same if you want to check your posture. So all of these negative embodiment sensations might affect our brain, but we are not able to reflect on it. So these perceptions of the physical stillness and discomfort may unconsciously restrict the psychological freedom and flexibility, which could potentially affect our ability of creativity. And the social aspect. So normally in the physical workshop, we have these simultaneous interactions, but now we in the remote one, we can only do the sequential interaction. Like we have to wait for other people to finish in order to interact with them. In the physical workshop, we have various approaches of sending and receiving the social cues in order to show that, okay, I'm here, show our presence and identity or role. For example, we are by waving or by doing some body movement or even the eye contact. However, in this remote collaborative workshop, especially for some people who are shy, like they probably will feel like being left out or not included in the activity. Another aspect is the cognitive aspect. One example of this cognitive aspect is the attentional focus. Like the psychology research shows that our attention could be broad or narrow. The research in psychology also show that the creativity requires the broad and wide attentional breadth, like when we are doing the brainstorming. However, like in this remote workshop, what we do is staring at the computer screen. So this behavior may restrict our ability of allocating our attentional focus. Another interesting thing I recently figured out is about myself. I often constantly check my own image on the screen to see if I look properly or not. I wonder if this distract me from paying attention to others, or this might potentially affect our creativity as well. Last bit is the emotional aspect. So the research in psychology shows that the positive emotional state could facilitate our creativity, whereas the negative emotions might hinder our creativity. In this digital or the remote collaborative design workshop, it's difficult to be aware of our own emotional state, and also it's difficult to recognize others, the emotion of other people. So that one side is where it's difficult for us to communicate our emotions. especially when we are waiting for or we are listening to others. We cannot give this emotional feedback as a support to our collaborators. This might be one factor that affects our creativity and also our colleagues or collaborators' creativity, which is also related to the last social aspect. So all of these four aspects, they are interrelated to each other. I guess what I want to share is not only about this four perspective, but the main takeaway for me, I think, is the reflections from this four perspective. So because for within each perspective is not limited to one point, like the physical stillness or the bad posture. It could be anything else, like the environment temperature could affect us as well. It's also similar to other aspects. There should be or could be a lot more factors within each aspect. So, in the remote collaborative workshop, there could be different roles. So we could be a participant, or we could be a organizer of this workshop, or we could be the developer who creates the technology to assist these remote collaborative workshops, or we could be the researcher that studies the user experience of this collaborative innovative or design workshop. So for each stakeholder, we could think about from this four perspective. For example, the participants, if we are a participant, we need to reflect on if we are currently doing well, if our emotional state is positive now, if we are affected by the physical discomfort. If we are the technology researchers, we need to think about how can we create the technology that helps the participants or the designers to communicate their emotions, or make their emotional support be aware or be perceived by other colleagues. I think this is the main message I want to deliver. So maybe currently we are in the pandemic, so the remote workshop is the only way for the design activities. But in the future, this could be this might be the new paradigm of these design workshops or the innovation activities. So in that case, if we think about, if we create a better experience by thinking about this for perspective, we don't have to use the physical resources. So our design workshops could be more efficient and sustainable in the remote version. Thank you. That's what I want to share, and I'm happy to hear what your thoughts about it. Thank you.
Did you create that model yourself? That's amazing, that framework.
Well, I also use this kind of framework in my other research projects, and also build on each other, and also based on my own personal experience as well.
Yes, I think that one is great. It's quite comprehensive, like from as a psychologist researcher, when I see that, I can say, oh, there are many like research potentials there, like to see that. And also you said, like, for our audience, maybe you can like take the screenshot for that model and you may use it for yourself, like to do the self-reflection. So all the time when you are doing the remote studies, remote workshop. And also I'm just wondering, like, just add something. So you mentioned some people may shy. So I'm just wondering, in that framework, maybe we can add personality there. So they can it's a kind of moderator, because for the different perspective, for the people with different personality, the effect of those cognitive affective mechanism may be different. So what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this really opens the space for us to think about, like what you just added, the personality. I think it's important to understand the underlying reasons of not feeling good, or not feeling having a good experience in these remote collaborative workshops. Once we understand the underlying reasons behind, we could further like address it from different perspectives, even from our own as a participant, we can reflect on it, or as an organizer, we need to take care of these issues or these factors of different participants with different personalities. And even for the technology, it could help the organizer to do such arrangement or improvement.
I think it's very like this is very good framework, to be honest. And also like we have very limited time for now, like even though I have we still have many questions for you, so I just choose one. So maybe Tiggy and Tao, you can help us with that. So you guys mentioned the negative part in the current situation and the positive part in the previous situation in the normal context. So do you think, is there any positive effect in this kind of situation? Is there any positive effect to just always doing this kind of communication online? So from a psychological perspective, or from other designers' perspective, do you have any consideration about that? Thoughts?
I think for sure it's not only the negative bits during this pandemic period, and also during these online collaboration activities. So first, like, it reduced the physical travel time. We don't have to manage the physical space. We don't have to travel to somewhere. It just, we can do a lot of things at home. It saves a lot of time, and also opens to anyone else. Like, this becomes more inclusive to many people to join us, like what we have today.
So how about you, Tiggy? How about you? What do you think?
I think from a design point of view, well, we are in a comfort zone now. I think it's becoming very comfortable, and there is a lot of time. So well, as a personal reflection, there are a lot of association that happens while I'm designing. So now with the time, it's not a rush in order to do things, and yeah, we can really relax and think about various different ideas at the same point of time. Of course, they are limited because of the space that we are living, and because of the influences that we have from the external environment have been reduced. But I think the internal influences have grown. So a lot of memories, for example, are now driving the design. A lot of information from the internet and the screen is now governing the thoughts and ideas. And basically, you're traveling the world through YouTube in a way. So that's how I think the design is becoming influenced. And those are new things. I don't know if they're better or bad, but they are definitely different.
Yes, I think it's kind of we just need to accommodate ourselves in this kind of situation. I think even though this kind of pandemic goes away, this kind of working style will stay with us for even longer time. So it kind of changed our living style, or say the working, studying style already. So so I think it's really, really important to think about these kind of things. And also your takeaways, Tiggy's takeaway and Tao's framework will be very, very helpful for all of us. So thank you very much for today's talk and your answers.
Great. Thanks for having us. And,
thank you. It's very inspiring. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.